Hey, y'all, welcome to Challenge Accepted. I am Frank, and I'm here with Thomas.
Aloha, everybody. Let's get into The Boys.
The Boys is back. I'm so happy The Boys is back. It's as crazy as ever. They have not lost a beat. What'd you think?
I loved it. I was so stoked on the episodes that we got. So surprised that we got 3.
Mm-hmm. That was a big surprise, especially for at midnight when I'm already like, all right, all I got to do is watch 1 hour of The Boys and I'm good. Like, oh, 3 hours. Okay, I don't need sleep.
Yeah. I was still up at midnight and I went to just check. I was like, let me see. I was like, 3 episodes. I'm going to sleep. Like, this will be here tomorrow. So, yeah. But, man, I dove into it all yesterday and, God, it is back. They did not disappoint.
Yeah, it feels like they haven't left. Something about The Boys where it's like super watchable. I know that sounds kind of odd, but as complicated as it is, it's so fun and kind of wacky in places where I don't feel any like pressure to pay attention to absolutely everything. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's like it has the watchability of a House of the Dragon or Game of Thrones, yet it has so much humor in there and it doesn't take itself seriously. You're like,
yeah,
well, I'm about to laugh at some point, even if at one point I'm also shocked by how somebody gets murdered.
It's like a cartoon version of House of the Dragons. Like it's as serious as that, but also like wacky in all the right ways. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a great description. Looney Tunes meets House of the Dragon. That's
now I want to watch that.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, let's go ahead and get into that breakdown, which you're the one diving on the grenade for this one. So
yeah, can I get an extra minute because we got 3 episodes?
Yes, let me add it to the clock.
Okay, and please chime in there if I miss anything because 3 pages of notes. I can barely read a page in a book, so this is gonna be tough for me.
All right, here we go.
All right, so we're back with season 4, episode 1. It's called Department of Dirty Tricks. The boys are in the middle of a plan to kill Victoria Neuman. We see that Homelander and Ryan show up. Now, Billy confronts Ryan in the kitchen area. He wasn't supposed to be a part of it. He was supposed to just walk Frenchie and Kimiko into there. Well, he confronts Ryan, seeing that he's there. Now, Victoria and her daughter are there, and Homelander and his son show up. They decide to talk to each other. Now, in the room, Kimiko and Frenchie are dropping some kind of chemical in this solution, thinking that it's going to kill Victoria. All hell breaks loose when they find out that Victoria's daughter is also a soup, and she has like these tentacle mouths, like a flirkin. Yeah, it was wild. Eats up Kimiko's arms. She kills a bunch of the dudes. They jump out the window. Let's see. From there, Victoria Neuman shows up to the van, confronts Huey. We get a little bit more in there that, they were pretty much friends at one point. So
1 minute down. You've only got 2 more to go.
Holy moly. Okay. Homelander finds the biggest fans, A-Train. Hell breaks loose with the 2 different sides, and they drop off the bodies, and Butcher trolls Neuman, not giving her files. Now, in episode 2, Life Among the Skeptics. And we see A-Train is doing this movie very much whitewashing. It's like that one movie with Keanu Reeves and he becomes the coach of that inner city baseball team. Very much like that. Huey and his mom, he realizes or finds out that his mom has power of attorney over his dad. He can't figure out why. Frenchie wakes up in Colin's bed. There's definitely something going on there. And we kind of forget that Frenchie is polyamorous, or what's the word I'm looking for? Bisexual. Yeah. Now, Butcher then tells the boys that he's dying. They're surprised by this. Sister Sage then gets in the mix. I don't even think I mentioned this. I don't remember if this was episode 1 or episode 2 now, but basically Homelander reaches out to her. What's that?
Only 1 minute to go.
Holy moly. Okay, we see Firecracker. We're at TruthCon. That shit is wild.
Fucking wild.
Yeah. Ryan kills his, whatever, what's the word I'm looking for? A combat coach?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I don't know, stunt coordinator? Yeah, something like that.
Stunt coordinator, yeah, exactly. Yeah. They stage it. He feels guilty about it. Huey confronts his mom.
Brutal. Yeah.
Crazy. All right. Episode 3 called We'll Keep the Red Flag Flying. Opens with like a Homelander conference. He's introducing the 2 new members of the 7, Sister Sage and Firecracker. We see somebody show up to the Starlight or HQ, and it gets full like conspiracy theory craziness. Frenchie and Kimiko go on their own kind of mission. She runs into somebody from her past. Then they're at this ice thing. Victoria's there and Homelander's there. Let's see. All craziness breaks out there because Homelander shows up. Joe and Kessler. We didn't even get to Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Sister Sage in the Deep. And Homelander talks to himself and says he has to go back to the start. Wow, that was hard.
Yes, I can
Didn't
imagine
even
that.
Scratch the surface on everything. But I'm pretty long-winded, so that makes sense.
We'll break it down over all the big keep stories going on. Let's start with Homelander. So yeah, Homelander is really forcing this idea that Ryan will eventually become the next Homelander. You made a great point though before we started recording. Is while he is pushing that, he's also not wanting Ryan to take the spotlight from him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because he tells Sister Sage, the only reason why I want to do all of this is so that I have something to leave for my son. Yet when it's time for his son to step in the spotlight, he doesn't let him. He's like, I have to be a part of the save. And, Ryan doesn't give a crap about that. He feels guilty because he killed the guy that was helping him build out the whole plan. Oh, my gosh. Homelander. What a maniacal, crazy dude.
There's so much crazy shit goes on in this series that you forget how amazing the acting is. Because we have, in both these cases, Anthony Starr, who's playing this just out of control maniac, barely holding on to the world around him. And now we're introduced to the idea that Homelander's aging and he's starting to lose a little bit. And so how does somebody who has full control over everything around him seem to be invulnerable now sees a death coming up, which we also see mirrored over to Butcher as well. But how does he handle that?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think you're so right. The guy who's all powerful, who thinks he's better than humans, is dealing with a very human issue.
Yes. But how amazing is Star's acting around that? Like the way you could see almost like the eyes twitch,
I know, dude, he can do so much with just his facial expressions. It's wild. Yes. Yeah, just that you can tell how things are irking him and just the way his face tightens or contracts. God, he's so good. And yeah, like he's been unstoppable this whole season, but that white pube, the fact that he even collects it
collects
too,
them.
Oh my God, like so wild. But he has the trophy case to everything, right? He has the trophy case to Stormfront. He has the milk bottle. Yeah, a sword, I think, from the original Noir. Yeah. He's a wild character.
But the acting chops is so impressive. I really hope everybody keeps saying it. I'm going to keep saying it. Anthony Starr needs to be a Marvel. I personally wanted to play Dracula. I think he would be such a fantastic Dracula for Blade to constantly have to go against Morbius if they ever do it right. Have to constantly be dealing with, like, he would be such a cool Dracula with a full-on Castlevania style castle.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, that'd be sick. This would be too on the nose, and it would be too close to what he is already doing with Homelander. But I think if he had played the Sentry, he would have crushed it. Like him being the Sentry and also dealing with the Void would have been so insane to see, because he would have been able to like act against himself. But again, it would have been too close to what he's doing now with Homelander.
We're seeing him like talk to the mirrors and stuff like that. That would have been how they probably would have portrayed the Void and stuff. So,
exactly.
Absolutely. But not all just Anthony Starr. On the other side of that, we have Cameron Corvetti playing Ryan, his son, who has this really amazing way of balancing both, like, I'm an innocent kid, also, like, I'm just completely uncomfortable with my surroundings right now. I don't feel safe really with anybody. And he doesn't have a place he really can feel like he calls home. You could tell that coming through the actor.
Oh my God, this kid is phenomenal. He did such a good job. At the end of last season, you're like, all right, like he's okay. But man, because he also turns evil after we see at the end of last season when the bottle hits him in the face and then Homelander lasers that dude's head off. And he smiles. You're like, ooh, this kid is evil.
Yeah.
But this season, you're right. He doesn't seem like he has a place. He knows he's Homelander's son. He thinks he's in a safe space. But then he goes over to Butcher's house after Butcher makes the cookies. They have this time. And man, that scene was so good. He's just breaking down. He feels guilty. He knows that, his mom did love Butcher. Man, it's just this kid phenomenal. He's doing an amazing job.
Which is good, because in last season and anytime before that, he's always been the prop. He's just been something for Butcher and Homelander to fight over. But this time, no, he's an actual player on the field. And I really like how Jeffrey D. Morgan says, if we don't work, and Butcher's so adamant that this kid doesn't actually get involved in the fight. But like Jeffrey says, if we don't bring him to our side and use him as a tool, we need to figure out how to kill him. And I think that's the only way you can get through to Butcher, is like, we're going to have to figure out a way to kill your kid,
Yeah, and Butcher can understand it because he's been that guy for all the other seasons. He's basically preaching something back to Butcher that Butcher's been saying. I love the addition of Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He's so good. He's so smooth with everything. Yeah. He's a perfect counter to Butcher. He feels like he's one of the only characters that could actually like, tell him something and have him listen. Although we see Mother's Milk do the same thing in I think episode 3, which I loved too, seeing Mother's Milk step up. But bringing it back to Joe Kessler, he's just giving the medicine that Butcher needs, and he can't argue against it.
Something about Kessler, something about Butcher. They're one of the few people you could imagine actually sitting in a room with Homelander too. Like to be able to talk to Homelander and feel not overpowered. Like Huey, his job is to feel weak against other people and somehow skate by. Like he's just that way. But those two, you feel like I want to see a conversation with them. You know, same thing with Soldier Boy from last season. Like, yeah, they're that level. It's so fun to watch.
Totally. And we get it in the episode 1 with them in the ice cream room, him talking to Ryan, and he's just like, ooh, that black mass around your brain, Homelander, to the Butcher, so you know? So good. It's just this back and forth, and it's like, are they going to kill each other? Are they not? Are they the Joker and the Batman in this situation? Are they always going to be against each other and yet at the same time kind of need each other to point out their flaws, to point out and make each other better in some way? It's like that dynamic is just so good.
I think especially for Homelander, Butcher is sharpening his blade, right? It's something that's, I can't remember where I've heard that from, but basically like you'll never kill the other person because you need them to sharpen your blade on so that when something else really comes up, you can handle it. Homelander is not complacent. He's not complacent because Butcher's always out there as soon as Homelander lets his guard down to be taken out. And same thing for Butcher. Butcher's never going to just retire, although he is only got 6 months left. He's not going to retire because till his dying breath will be fighting Homelander. And we're dealing right now with a Butcher that's trying to reassess things while still piling forward. But like, yeah, he wants to reconnect with his son. He knows that, you know, he's leaving the boys to a new leader. And I think death is really putting a lot for him to look back on. But when he kind of like clears that away and he's just like already there at the buffet before them doing Butcher things, you can tell like it takes the weight off his mind a little bit, you know?
Yeah, definitely. He's just so good. Yeah, this time limit, what he's done. I mean, again, we talked about them being kind of the counters, but they also are having these visions of who their conscious is, so to speak.
Yeah.
We see at the end of episode 3 for Homelander, it's still himself. He's like, you got to go back to the start. Like, you got to fix this. You're weak. You're this. But in episode 1, the way it ends is Butcher is talking to his ex-wife, or you know, the wife that was killed, the mother of Homelander's son, and it's like she's telling him like, you got to do the right thing, like, and you really see how it hits him, even though it's in his own mind, how he then acts in episode 3, which I think is the most vulnerable he's ever been in the show. It's the most loving, caring, vulnerable. Like, I am scared. I'm scared all the time. You know, I should have told you I was. And there's a part, I think maybe in episode 2, where he hugs Huey. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? Is he just super drunk? But I think he is being vulnerable because he knows his time is near the end. Similarly for Homelander, he's like, I'm not going to be around forever. I'm aging. I got white pubes. The bush is turning white. Like, I gotta figure something out before I'm just an old man.
Even Homelander's inner psyche that's talking to him is now shattered, like the mirror he was looking into, where it's not just one consistent opinion. Now it is, you are super weak, and the other side of that is you must be unstoppable. And so, like, even he now has a shattered psyche that he didn't have before. He used to be much clearer, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. So well done. They're these actors they have these characters in their pocket. Like, they're always going to be those characters for me. Like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, like Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. Like, they got these characters in their pocket. Now Carl the rest Urban, of the boys.
Yeah, Carl Urban is an amazing actor. Like, he played Eomer, I think it was, in Lord of the Rings, and he was Bones in Star Trek, and now he's here. He is so freaking good at everything he does. He's Judge Dredd too, in the newer Judge Dredd. Hopefully we get more of those.
Right. But he was he had a shaved head in Thor Ragnarok.
That's right.
Yeah.
God, it's funny how much I disrespected that character in Thor because he's supposed to be, but
You're right.
and everything else, I'm like, that's the badass. And then that one, you're always like, Thor, whoop his ass for me.
Right. But it shows, man, he's got such range. So good call
does.
out. Carl
Absolutely.
Urban, he might be one of those underrated actors, honestly. I think people love him
in
now.
the
but
geekdom. I don't think as much, but I think in
True.
I think normal people don't really think about him as much as we do.
Exactly. Like if you put him in Academy Awards, people are thinking Leonardo DiCaprio and what's his name? Daniel Day-Lewis and
Right.
Those big actors. But like Carl Urban has those chops too.
Absolutely. Before we leave Butcher, I think we might find out that he's not dying because we have that worm that was crawling around and on the side of his head. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean we're getting one more season, so
Fair.
I don't know how long this season is gonna take. I can imagine he'll be around for season 5, but I don't know. Yeah, something tells me this isn't the end.
Yeah. The way Homelander saw the black mass, I'm like, okay, so maybe that's a creature. Who knows? But yeah, I think there's more to it than just like, oh, it's cancer or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's true. It's funny. I didn't really think about that too much, but something tells me he's still going to be here for season 5. Maybe not all the way through, but he'll be there.
Oh no, we'll see what survives at the end of season 5. I don't know what the heck's going to make it to that point, but yeah, it'll be. I don't think the boys will exist at that point.
Yeah. But the boys that we have now.
Right. Yeah, we have him now, but I think by the end, I think it might just be like Homelander destroys the world. I mean, honestly, I could see this story ending that way. Who knows?
True. Yeah.
They could go for it. Huey is such a wonderful character, and the fact that him and Starlight are still together is really cool. And we see Starlight trying to become like not Starlight, then like knowing that no, it's important that I do embrace my identity. Meanwhile, Huey's dealing with his dad Simon Pegg's stroke and seeing the value and just kind of like I think that's kind of bringing him back down to the humanity that I think he's kind of been leaving behind as he embraced the hero side of the world, and even taking some of that temporary V for a bit there. So those two I think are kind of returning back to what made them in this first part of the season.
Yeah. I love how we're naturally chunking it out into groups because I think this is a perfect group here.
It has to be.
Yeah, true. There's a lot. But like Huey, yes, I think you're so right. We've seen him deviate so far from the Huey in season 1. And now with his mom coming back, it very much brings him back to that first person, like becoming vulnerable again. It's like, why did you leave me? You weren't there for me and dad. And now that she's back in and all of a sudden has taken power of attorney over his dad, he's like, what? How is that possible? His motivations, I think, make so much sense to me. The way Victoria confronts him in the van, and he's like, we were friends, like we were almost family, like and she's like, I almost told you everything at one point. And so I love that they're explaining that relationship because we only kind of briefly got to see it, I think, in season 3. So I love that. And then also Starlighter, her story really, for me, feels like that athlete who's been a superstar athlete, but wants to show people I'm more than that, right? It was like when Kobe Bryant stepped away from the Lakers and retired, was like, well, yes, I was this level of basketball player, but like I have these things that I want to show that I care about. I'm a movie producer, I'm a father, I'm all these other aspects. And I feel like she's doing the same thing. And yet her putting back on the jersey is what makes people want to be interested in what she has to say and it makes people want to know more about her. So I think I don't know, that's how that relationship or that situation is playing out for me.
And if you are a hero, being a hero is sacrifice. And another character that does it often, but we'll go with the classic movies, the Nolan ones, is Batman. Batman retires so many times, guys, but then he finds out that Gotham needs him. If not for him actually punching people, it's for him being a symbol in the city. So we see with the Nolan movies, that third one, he's retired, he comes back, and he saves the day again. And I think and it's just a sacrifice. He literally sacrifices himself. We find out not so much. Anyways, Starlight has to do the same thing. She has to know that she's no longer have the freedom of being the pageant queen or whatever. She has to be a hero for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. And it's interesting to see where Starlight is now, because when she gets introduced in season 1, she's very much like Midwest queen or Midwest princess,
Right.
the pageant girl, like God and value, or, like classic American values. And she's become a little bit, I guess you could say, less conservative and more liberal. Again, it's going to be impossible, I think, for us to talk about this season without talking a little bit about political comparisons, because that's what this show does. But she's very much kind of drifted away from maybe more traditional conservative values and more into liberal thinking, and and wants to again separate herself from Vought, from that costume. But I love how the fact that because superheroes exist in this world, there has to be symbols to step into those costumes. It's one of my favorite lines in the first Avengers, where Coulson is telling Captain America, he's like, you got to put on the suit. And he's like, isn't this a little old fashioned? And he's like, no, I think people need a little old fashioned right now.
Exactly.
And if superheroes did exist, I mean, we have them again with athletes and jerseys and all that stuff. It's like, we need people. Actually, real world example, firefighters, for a lot of people out there, not everybody now, police officers, or military. When you put on that uniform, it means something to people. It means that you're for a cause above yourself. And I love how in this world, it takes that example, turns it in Starlight, and it's like, put on that costume because people need you to be the counter to these alt-right soups on the Homelander side.
Yeah. We definitely have to talk about politics. There's no way around on this one. Right. But let's kind of go through some more of the characters and flesh them out a little bit. I think let's talk about the rest of the boys, right? We have Frenchie, Mother's Milk, and Kimiko. It looks like each of them are returning back to the things that kind of hit them at home. We've got Mother's Milk, who's realizing that, like, I didn't like the guy, but he was a good stepdad to my daughter. We've got Frenchie, like, hey, my past is troubling me, and it's the reason I can't go forward with any relationships. And Kimiko's seeing that, like, I was trafficked, and that's something that's being used as a tool by people that I don't agree with. And the truth of the matter is that trafficking exists, and because they're using it as a tool, it's being misled and not actually being addressed. So it's going to be a journey of turning back inward if they're going to go forward at all for all three of these characters.
Yes. And I love how, and I think it's right, that Mother Milk has now been put in charge of the boys from Mallory Grace. He's leading them. They're now brought in by the president, which is so crazy. That shows, like, they were on the run, I think, in season 2, and now they're the answer to the suit problem. It's wild, but it's such an
X-Men thing. Like, there's so many times where the X-Men is like needed for the U.S. government, hunted by the U.S. government, back and forth all the time.
Yeah, well said. So true. That's absolutely true. I mean, we've seen it in this past season of X-Men 97, so 100%. Yeah. But I love Mother's Milk as a character. One of my favorite. Everybody in this cast. Like, I don't think there's one I dislike at all. Like, I love everybody for what they do in the show. Mother's Milk is no exception. He just wants to be a good dad. He wanted revenge. He had the chance to get revenge. He's past that now. So now he's the perfect leader, because he's like, we have a job to do, and if we don't do it, nobody else can. And he's kind of back and forth between, Butcher, you were the leader. I love and respect you, but you're getting out of control. And meanwhile, the rest of you guys, like, I got to point you in the right direction. And I want to set up this world so it's safe for my daughter. And yeah, he's dealing with a lot too. Like, all of these characters are so fleshed out.
Yeah, it is pretty great. And characters being fleshed out happening on the 7 as well, because we have A-Train, of course, really becoming a whole person and not just the fast guy on the team. And to a more awkward degree, we have the Deep doing the same thing, realizing that his own interests are not being addressed by the people around him, and he's just a sycophant. He's just a weakling behind the Homelander. Right. He's very much being used as a tool by Sage, but yeah, it's both characters are kind of developing as well.
So true. Yeah. I want to quickly go back to Frenchie and Kimiko just real quick, because I love Frenchie's dynamic. We saw in season 1, it seemed like he had this relationship with this guy and girl, and you're like, okay, so is he bisexual? Is he actually in a relationship? Like, I didn't feel like I saw him like make out with them or do anything with, so I wasn't sure in that relationship. I think this season very clearly shows that he is bisexual, but it's like, I didn't even know if has he ever kissed Kimiko? I can't remember.
I think he probably attempted to, and then she wasn't ready or something like that. And she's trying to tell him, like, it'll never happen. So.
Right. So I love it. It's like, I've always felt, regardless of if it's a sexual relation or not, they've been really good friends and they really understand each other. And I feel like this is the first season we've seen maybe them differ because of who they are. Yeah. And that's kind of a cool dynamic. I mean, they go off on that mission together. Again, not sure. It's like underground thing. And because he's high, he basically leaves her to get shot up and all this stuff. Like, I didn't think she was going to die, but still, he let her go through so much more pain than she needed to because he's dealing with his own shit. And does he love Colin? Does he not? I think he does, but he doesn't want to like give in to that, especially because he knows he killed Colin's family at some point.
I'm looking forward to that being explored more for sure. Somebody on Threads, because I put it out there like, hey, what did you guys think about this episode and stuff like that? Somebody felt like, yeah, the episode or that particular part of the story with those two feels like it's kind of been worn out already. They've already kind of explored their relationship. And it feels like it's going to go back to the fact that Frenchie really loves Kimiko, and she's not, giving those feelings back, which is something we've already seen a few times now in The Boys. So I could see that could be a path forward. Yeah. But I think there's new avenues to explore within it, so I'm totally willing to be here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love what they're doing with her character. Like Karen Fukuhara, I think is her name. She's such a phenomenal actress. I feel like she's so underrated. Everything she's in, I love. She seems like such a cool person in all the interviews I've seen and everything. But to play a mute character and to be able to emote so much and to give so much to that character and to go from like this sweet, loving person who wants to do musicals to an absolute feral savage is wild. I think she also gets to show so much range in this show. But also like, a lot of this season, as we're talking about it, to me, what's standing out is like a lot of this is going back to like the root of who these people were. Exactly. And have they confronted those issues? Like, has she confronted that she was abducted by this terrorist organization, forced to take Compound V and then used as a weapon, and her going to therapy and just showing how hard, therapy could be for her with all the trauma she's experienced and stuff. And again, you mentioned it, to them weaponizing child trafficking, and her to be like, I actually experienced this, and you're doing this in such a bullshit way that's making people get angry, but not actually addressing the root of the problem. I just think is so damn cool with her character. Not in a cool way that I want trafficking, but in a way that they're exploring how she has to step up and fight through this trauma and really figure out how she deals with it. I think they're doing a superb job with that.
And on the lighthearted side, too, the way that she fights is very much, she feels unstoppable, right? She just soaks bullets like a sponge, but she does feel much more like a Batman in comparison to watching Superman fights this entire time. So visually, it's pretty cool to be able to have that cool fight with more physical, street level heroes when they're at the convention. And then later on when you see like Homelander do things and it's just like God versus God, it's a good balance on the show, which we do see in comics often. Yeah,
totally. She's always felt like Wolverine to me. Like I've always
That's a great,
yeah. I just feel like she's Wolverine. She's feral. She can heal out of anything. Even when her arm gets, bitten off, basically she has like the baby arm, like Deadpool. She's Wolverine to me.
She's closer to that like early days of X-23, like in the movie Logan, when she's just like, which by the way, just throwing this out there real quick, me and John were at the gym bullshitting about Deadpool and Wolverine, and he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm gonna really be excited about it because they kind of messed up on well, hold on. Oh, it gets worse. He's like, those last few Wolverine movies were pretty bad, and he says, I didn't even watch the one where he's with the girl or whatever, and I just about dropped what I was doing, and he kind of saw how shocked I was, and I was like, Jonathan, you're missing out on the best X-Men movie ever made. You have to watch it. I kind of explained some of the most important things, like the Professor X of it all, and so, he's hopefully watching it this weekend. If not, I'm going to throw him in the back of a van and force him to watch it. That's insane.
For his own good. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the best Wolverine movie ever made, for sure. Like, I am a little bit of a sucker for Days of Future Past, but for sure, it's the best Wolverine movie. Oh my God. What? But that goes to show, like, you make enough bad stuff, and then when they finally put out something good, people won't be around for it. So I don't necessarily blame him. It's a movie I love, a tough watch. And anyways, I feel like Kimiko definitely embodies a lot of that Logan character. Yeah,
absolutely. Over on the Seven side, I got to give a shout out to A-Train, whose character we were talking about, like Jaime Lannister, right? Somebody who that's just a good hated with all our souls in the first season, and now I'm rooting for him and I'm wanting him to find a way. And we see that he's starting to slightly work with the boys, and I think he's going to come to a tragic end, but I think it's going to be in a way that really redeems him as a character.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about it before we recorded, and it's like, God, he was such a dick. Kills Huey's girlfriend, no remorse. Like, kills his own girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like only cared about himself. And you could see like he's been changing as the seasons have gone on, and kind of slow, but the fact that he gives Huey and Annie like the footage of the bodies of like where they got dropped off, and he noticed that they were watching him, or even his brother calling him out when he rolls up on the wheelchair and he's like, tell him the real story. Like, did you really do that? Tell him, and he's kind of confronted with his own ego and with his own perception of who he is. A lot of this, again, is going back to like the root of who you are. In episode, was it 2 or 3, where it starts the movie and Will Ferrell comes out as like his coach. He's like, come on, man. Like, all that stuff. And he's just not feeling it. I love that. I was like, damn, this show, you remember, because I think it was last season they had Charlize Theron play Stormfront.
Yeah.
Bro, it is so good how they bring in like these major actors for these like super cheesy roles where you could kind of see them doing it, but like it's kind of making fun of those type of situations.
Oh, I know.
Dude, so perfect.
Dude, and while I'm watching that, I'm like, son of a bitch. I love those movies growing up. The ones that they're making. I'm like, remember the Titans and Coach Carter and all these different movies that I love so much. That we're just like, they're just doing one of those like cheesy sports movies that I used to drink.
Totally. But that works, and he's definitely involved. And there's a really good conversation between him and Mother's Milk that I really loved. I feel like they're the two characters that haven't really gotten to interact a lot. And yet somehow this makes a ton of sense. I mean, obviously they're both black, and I feel like, Mother's Milk being able to go out and reach out to him and not have to put on like the white voice or whatever. I really feel like it was long overdue. And I think Mother's Milk, along with Huey and Annie, are really reaching over to A-Train and like, hey man, and Mother's Milk even addressing like, I think we can flip him, is really cool. And I just, man, so much growth from that character. He's crushing it, that actor.
I love too, his response was like, hell no. But even he started to see like, okay, we do need him and stuff like that. But
Totally.
2 other characters that were just added with very different reactions. Sister Sage, which she calls herself Sage. They call her Sister Sage, whatever. And Firecracker. Sage is played by Susan Hayward, who's nailing it, is an incredible character. One of my favorites already. And like I was telling you beforehand, I didn't even think about how much they could use an evil genius. And now that it's there, it's like, oh my God, Megamind, like this is it. And I hope so much that she's actually got some big master chess plan that's actually going to like screw over Homelander and all them too. I want her to be the one that like rises to the top, like, surprise, I'm actually president and CEO of and leader of the boys. Like I'm really rooting for her. And it's just such a cool character.
So cool. Her introduction was fantastic too. The reason why Homelander has to go see her is super unique. Like it's such an unlikely partnership, but then when you see how it plays out, you're like, oh shit, that makes sense. And he even says like, I'm smart enough to listen, and basically he's smart enough to know when he's been beat, in a sense. The way she's able to break down like, you're aging and you're afraid and this, and the way she kind of is able to read every situation, you're like, damn, an evil genius in this situation. Like you called it out before we recorded, Lex Luthor was such a good idea, because the boys don't have anybody that can match this level of intellect. Plus Homelander, that's like one area of Homelander where he is clearly weak. Like he knows he's not super smart. He doesn't know, he can't think 10 steps ahead for his plan. He's very reactionary. So this is someone who's cool-headed and like knows who's playing 4D chess. Oh God, she's so good. Such a cool character.
I like how she calls out too, like, the thing that will mess this up is your ego. And it is the thing that's messing things up already. But I am going in on this, and I'll be happy to be proven wrong at the end, but I think it's kind of fun to go in with this perspective, is that no matter what happens, she already planned for it. I'm going to assume that she's that smart, kind of a Rick and Morty kind of thing, where even when even when it looks like Homelander messed things up because of, like, he showed up to his kids' crime breaking down thing, quotes. She planned on that. I'm gonna keep assuming that because then it's gonna be fun. Like, oh yeah, even when it seems like the boys got her, she planned on that.
I mean, yeah, the whole it was episode 2 where they break in or they fight in the bar mitzvah. I love this call out too. It was like the marvelous Miss Rachel, which the marvelous Miss Maisel.
Prime.
Is Prime. Exactly. I was like, oh, nice. That was so good. But she like tricked them all, which I had a feeling, I was like, there's no way like they're just following her around and she doesn't know. Turns out she did. She traps them, mother's milk, all them. I thought that was so cool. Like outsmarting them. Oh, so good. Then they have to say butcher. But there's an interesting point, and I think it's episode 3 where the Deep confronts her. He's like, what do you get off, blah, blah, telling us whatever. Then she kind of like even outsmarts him. They hook up. Very surprising. Wasn't expecting that. But then the camera pans away and you see this like poker with blood on it. Yeah. What do you think that is? Because I've seen a lot of theories kind of going out. I didn't know it all. I was like, I have no idea what that's for. What do you think it is?
I think she has a healing factor and she just gave herself a lobotomy to like just shut her brain off for a little while. But I think she knows she's got a healing factor. It'll heal up and she'll be fine.
That is the theory where my mind is going to. Dude, I'm like, that's gnarly if that's the path where she has to literally lobotomize herself to shut herself down to become normal for a little bit. You know, like that after work cocktail or that, for you weed smokers out there, the after work puff, it's like just to chill out. But a lobotomy, damn, that's something the boys would definitely do.
I was waiting for you to say like that's so the boys.
yeah.
One of the things that proves how smart she is she stages a situation where the Starlighters and the Homelander folks are going to fight each other, right? She's just going to create the chaos as much. That's her whole plan out of everything is to create enough chaos in America to where Homelander can rise to the top, right? But we're seeing her implement that within the 7 as well, because when the Deep comes to her, or like she goes to the Deep saying like, why do you let her talk to you like this? You're better than that genetically. She's got a real Magneto vibe. I can see that what she's really trying to do is keep the 7 unstable as well, so that she could possibly raise to the top of the 7. Like, I think she sees that chaos is a ladder, kind of thing. And while she's doing that on a global stage for Homelander, I think she's doing that in the 7 for her.
Totally. Well said. Yeah, she probably even knows that A-Train gave that flash drive of all the information, but the fact that she's kind of playing everybody, and you're right. I love the actor that plays the Deep too, because it's that character you love to hate, but he's so funny in it. I think he's amazing.
His career is shot. He's never gonna do anything else, and me not see him as like the guy who sleeps with an octopus.
Yeah, totally. Which of course, having Tilda Swinton as Ambrosius or whatever she is, incredible. Yeah. He's so good, but her planting that seed of like, you're a god, why are you gonna let this human talk to you? And and Ashley has never been afraid of the Deep. She's never really been afraid of any of the superheroes except for Homelander. To now start putting fear into her out of all these other heroes is really unique. And it's like all these CEOs have never had a real reason to have power over these heroes, except for that they make the marketing and they, give them the endorsement deals and that kind of stuff. Like, but from a physical standpoint, there's nothing they can do to them. And it's just a nice wrench into the whole plan of having the Deep step up and be like, you can't talk to me that way. And so good. Kathy's great too.
I didn't think a new character would come in and become so much one of my favorites so fast, to be like, I cannot wait to see what she does next. So shout out to Susan Hayward for nailing that portrayal.
Absolutely.
Valerie Curry plays Firecracker, a character that I love to hate. She's she's one of those people where you're like, oh my God, this is the person my uncle watches. What do you think about
doubt. Yeah, my grandpa for sure. My grandpa definitely loves characters like that. Your Tommy Lawrence and all that.
Alex Jones type.
Totally. Yeah. And hey, if you like it, all the power to you. But I hate her. I think she's terrible. But she says something in episode 2 that I thought was so on the money and so just insightful. I was blown away by it, and it really gives credence to why somebody would join one of these alt-right groups or just a on the spectrum group. It's when she's talking to Sister Sage, and she says this. she's like, what do you sell? And she says, I sell purpose, right? What would you rather believe? You're a part of a team of secret warriors fighting the establishment, or you're a lonely, inconsequential nobody that nobody will remember.
Right.
Fuck. Did that?
And that, I think that's it
so
on
hard.
every part of the spectrum, right? If you think you're on this side or that side, I think the more active members feels like they're fighting against an opposition, and I think that's part of it. It's almost, it's how you choose a team, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to feel. Yeah, and you want to feel like you're a part of something that's going to mean something. Right. And there's so many people, you know, you do your job day in and day out, and I think we all have that idea of like, you know, maybe one day I'm not going to be here, or what did it mean? And so when you feel like you can contribute to something, I can understand why somebody would join one of these groups, and putting it that succinctly from a character that you kind of despise makes a ton of sense. So she nailed it with that line. I think she crushed it. Also, I want to give a shout out. I found the Deep's name, Chase Crawford. Chase Crawford, fantastic. Yeah.
I want to say Sage is putting Firecracker into the 7 as another way to create chaos for her to climb up. But I do see that she does definitely have value in kind of fostering even the lowest denominator that maybe even Homelander can't stand being around him. Like he can't stand her being around him. But I think she does foster that group that like we could use them to kick dirt. But I think also just like she's gonna put Homelander off so much that I could use that to distract him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows it fills Homelander's base. Like that's what the Homelander base wants to hear, you know, like, you know, our lives matter. We're gonna, you know, you guys aren't gonna kick us off the top. And and it's just like, even if Homelander doesn't like her yet, even if he despises her, he's like, well, she's gonna help boost the people that love me, so let's do it.
Yeah. And Sage says, I need her because she counters Starlight. And the whole time I'm like, well, I don't understand how her ability counters Starlight's ability. No, it's because she's grew up with Starlight, essentially. And they were in the pageant circuit, and it brings out a side of Starlight that Starlight likes to put away right now. We talked about it beforehand, where she was like this competitive beauty queen and was that mean girl, you know. That's a persona that Starlight definitely doesn't carry anymore. She has the Starlight House, which is a charity, whether or not you believe it or not, guys.
Right.
But the counter to that is Firecracker coming in and saying, she called me a fat this and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, wow, that's more powerful than her little firecrackers that she could do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's it. That is such an interesting concept in itself. Like when we think about superheroes, it's like, who's the most powerful? Like Superman or Doomsday, or, you know, Batman or Captain America. Like we always do those kind of like online debates. It's fun in nerddom. But that's what something The Boys does super well. It's not necessarily like what your actual power is. It's like the way you wield it and the way it gets you to a place in life where you can have real power, which is influence over other people. Right. And damn, are they just using that so well? Because like nobody loves Jubilee, but Jubilee, you know, at least in the X-Men the animated series, was the gateway, or at least the perspective for young kids to see themselves in a superhero team. And Firecracker is very much that same way. Her power may not be great, but a lot of people can see herself in her, and now she's a part of the 7. So that in itself is powerful.
This is such a perfect ensemble cast. It's fantastic. The stories we have ahead, the world they're building is it's cartoonish and believable at the same time. It's unreal, and I don't know. It's just something else. I can't wait to watch more of it. Any final thoughts from you, or any more thoughts from you?
No, this was just a fantastic start. I love it. I don't know where this season's going to go. And I always feel like I can kind of tell where the season's going to go. I knew Soldier Boy was going to eventually lead to fighting Homelander and Butcher. And I didn't see the flip happen or who showed up. There was a lot of surprises at the end of last season. And I think I know where things are going, but this show is so well written. I don't care as much about predictions as much as I care about just going on this ride and seeing how they're going to use this world as an allegory for the things we're going through in modern day. And man, God, I love it. I love it. Just the whole way it paints all of these pictures. Whether I'm for one thing politically or not, I don't care. I'm in for the ride.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here to have fun. Let's throw a grade on these first 3 episodes. I'm going to go with a 4 out of 5.
Nice. I am going, Yeah, I think I'm going a 4 out of 5 as well. I want to go 4.5 out of 5, but there's some times where there's so many characters, they have to throw so many different plot lines in. It feels like the pacing feels a little weird sometimes for me, but that's such a small little nitpick. Other than that, fantastic. Love this show.
Well said. Yeah, there's sometimes where you're like having to check in with too many people, and we're like, we don't need to check in with that person right now. You just left off with this person. I want to see what's going on with that. So
yeah,
that's totally fair.
When you get Jeffrey Dean Morgan and he's, when you get him in, you're like, okay, I get it. Let's move on to somebody else. That's crazy. Because I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan, fantastic actor, but sometimes this show would just be like that. There's just too many good people.
Such a missed opportunity. The fact that they didn't use him for, which Michael Keaton's amazing, but the fact that they didn't use him for Batman from the Flashpoint storyline is insane. Like, what a mess up on your guys' part. He's the comedian, man, from Watchmen. Make him the right Batman too. Yeah.
I know. God, yeah, you're right. Him as a Batman should definitely happen someday, but yeah. Him or John Hamm, I'm kind of cool as like the older-ish Batmans. Wow, that'd be great.
The Thomas Wayne Batman, that specific one that has the red on his, like, that's and so Jeffrey D. Morgan. Yeah, using the guns. God, what a great character. Writes the note to that's one of my favorite comic book stories. The one he writes a note to Batman, and then Flash brings him that. Oh my God, breaks my heart. I can remember that page exactly.
Dude, Grant Gustin not being in the Flash movie. When you have variants,
betrayal,
all of this, so many giant misses in that movie. Something that I don't feel like The Boys has done. So I'm happy we're watching this, and oh man, I think I'm gonna have to watch it again. I am
absolutely gonna watch it again this weekend for sure. I absolutely am, because I got to review it again for Geek Freaks.
Nice.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys Sunday night. We got House of the Dragons. It's busy time for us, so I'm excited for it.
It's on and popping like some firecrackers.
There you go. See you guys then. Bye.
All right. Aloha.